last but not the least, we have Professor Janice, who will be be the last speaker for the session. And before I hand over the floor, Professor Janice has served as Associate Dean and Director of the Environmental, Natural Resources and Energy Law Program at Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland since 1994. She oversees all aspects of the program for JD, LLM, and MSL students, as well as external events and trainings. Professor Janice is also a member of the Lewis and Clark Sustainability Council and is co-chair of the Natural Resources Law Teachers Committee of the National Foundation for the Natural Resources Energy Law. Professor Janice also oversees the environmental curriculum for the law school, for the in-person JD, LLM, and MSL program, and for the online LLM and MSL program. She counsels the students on their courses and career options. She also plans and executes a variety of conferences and trainings, including an annual Distinguished Environmental Visitor Lecture, annual Huffman National Resources Lecture, annual Environmental Symposium, Endangered Species Training, and a variety of other events. She also oversees various scholarships and fellow programs in the Environmental Law Program. In addition to her duties overseeing all aspects of the Environmental Law Program at Lewis and Clark, she teaches courses at the law school and teaches courses for federal agency personnel and training for the federal judges on environmental law. She has also served as visiting faculty at the University of Bologna and the University of Trento, Italy. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you very much, Dema, for that lovely introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for hanging in there Friday afternoon. It has been my pleasure to be here on your beautiful campus and to be in beautiful Bhutan for the first time. I want to thank JSW for the lovely invitation. And thank you to the Honorable Dean and to all the organizers of the conference and the faculty, and to David for all you've done to make my visit here so productive and wonderful. I bring greetings from Portland, Oregon, where Eric and Lindsay also reside. And so it is the Pacific Northwest, which you may know is the northwest corner. California, Oregon, then Washington. So that is where Lewis and Clark Law School is. We're in a beautiful forested area, which is nice to have when you're studying environmental law, to have this wonderful forest. But being on the top of a mountain to also study law and environmental law is pretty wonderful too. So I've enjoyed seeing your campus. And thanks to the Karuna Foundation and the Asia Foundation for their support of this program. And I'm really happy that law students have been here. I've really enjoyed meeting the JSW law students. And hopefully some of the remarks I'm making today will be helpful to JSW in its launch and development of its Climate Change Center, but also to the students for whom we are obviously creating all of these opportunities. So my plan in my time is to speak briefly about the environmental law program at Lewis and Clark, and then to really focus on what we do to educate future climate change leaders. And then I will talk about some successes and some challenges that we've had that may be useful to JSW as it proceeds to develop its own center. Hello? There we go. It's always a trick, isn't it? So first, just a brief overview of our environmental law program. The size of our law school is about 550 law students. That makes us a middle-sized law school in the United States. But I mention that just so you have a sense of scale of our school. We are nationally and internationally recognized for our environmental program. We actually were one of the first in the United States to start an environmental law program. Back in the 1970s, when, of course, the United States was just developing its environmental laws. So our program and environmental law in the United States have really kind of grown up together. So it was a very interesting time for us to get into the field. We offer over 40 environmental classes, and we have 10 faculty, and then lots of lawyers in the community who come in and teach in their specialty areas as adjunct faculty. We offer 3 types of degrees. And I mention this because it becomes important in how I think some things have been successful. We, of course, offer the JD, the US law degree, and we allow our students to specialize in environmental law, and they can get a certificate when they graduate that shows they specialized. We also offer an LLM and a non-law master's for people who don't want to be a lawyer. There are such people, of course, don't want to be a lawyer, I applaud that, but want to learn something about environmental law. And they can come and learn that along with our LLM and JD students. We are very proud to claim one of your JSW lecturers as one of our LLM alums, Shearing Dalker, one of the lecturers here. That's actually her in the picture, sitting and talking with myself and my associate director. So I mentioned that because our LLM program is international. We now offer both the master's and the LLM fully online. So people can be anywhere in the world and join us for this program. As Dema mentioned, we also offer trainings, workshops for federal judges, international judges on environmental issues. So now let me talk about how we approach climate education. Perhaps, there we go. There we go. 2 main goals. Our 2 main goals are to actually do the work. We want to be involved substantively in the climate work at the local, regional, national, and international level. So we engage with those communities to do the work and offer our assistance. But because we are an educational institution and not just a separate nonprofit, of course we're educating our students in that work. So we are preparing them to become future climate leaders. We want to educate them with a range of skills. So as I'll discuss, we want them to be ready to be advocates in the US court system, advocates on the international stage, and then have policy experience. And so we offer different types of experiences for them. So the offerings that we do in our climate center, broadly speaking, includes classes and then practical skills and clinics, which I will get into. They go hand in hand, of course. We ask our students to take certain classes before they jump into our clinical experiences. As you students might imagine, having a background in climate change law, having a background in the main environmental statutes is very useful as you are beginning to then do clinical, practical, real-world work. So we offer multiple classes in US climate change, international climate change, renewable energy, water law, wildlife, forest law, all the things that go into a well-rounded preparation for doing the real work. Then we offer 3 types of practical skills, clinical offerings. The Earthrise Law Center, Global Law Alliance, Green Energy Institute, those are all on campus. And then students can go off campus to do an externship. And I know you do that at JSW as well. Very valuable off-campus experience. So I'll just speak briefly about the Earthrise Law Center because our model in the US for litigation is quite different than it is here in Bhutan. And as Jolene noted, certainly not a focus in other countries as well. In the United States, we do a lot of litigation. There is a lot of law that is made by the courts. And in the United States, citizens can bring a lawsuit to challenge the government's failure to enforce an environmental law or a climate policy. So this is our clinic, the Earthrise Law Center, that trains students to become advocates in US courts. And I mention, in relation to climate change, the citizen suits, that's what US citizens can bring. A great example of those at work in the climate area are, of course, the cases brought by the youth climate cases, arguing that the government was letting them down, right? Had failed them, still failing them, by not enforcing and doing a better job in the United States for climate change. So that's a really interesting example of litigation. So just some practical notes. Our students take this clinic for academic credit. It applies towards their degree, and it's generally a 2-semester experience. They do work during the week, and then they have a weekly class meeting. I have some examples of the climate work the clinic has done. They sued and negotiated the closure of the only coal plant in Oregon and the formerly largest carbon emitter. They support citizen involvement in making transportation choices that are more sensible and reduce emissions. And they're expanding their work across the country to reduce greenhouse gases. The other clinic that we have that does climate work is the Global Law Alliance. This is the international environmental law clinic. And students, again, receive credit for their degree. Again, it's 2 semesters. This is pretty incredible work that these students get to do. They get to help negotiate international treaties that deal with climate change, endangered species. They get to go to the Conference of the Parties. They get to go to CITES meetings. They get to help prepare the lawyers. This clinic represents real clients. So we represent Pacific Island states and other countries that need assistance at these negotiations from lawyers. And so our students get to be involved in that. Again, just a couple of examples. Legal support, as I said, to developing countries in the COPs. Lots of work across the world to keep fossil fuels in the ground and help indigenous communities and local communities fight those battles by partnering with local NGOs and citizen groups to make those cases. And then, of course, protecting species affected by climate change, and working a lot on forest protections, particularly in Latin America. The third practical skills option is all about climate change. The Green Energy Institute was founded by one of our climate change professors, and it is all about transitioning to renewable energy, but in an equitable and just way. We've heard a lot about equity and justice this week. That is an important focus of GEI's work. It's not a clinic necessarily, it is a policy institute where they are advising legislatures, they are writing important research papers, they are commenting on proposed legislation, they're writing citizen guides on how to tackle important fossil fuel research issues. Lots of work being done right now around electric vehicles and charging stations. And then, of course, environmental justice issues that all go very importantly into this work. The thing I want to mention, and I'm happy to talk more about this in our question time too, all 3 of these enterprises are funded not by the law school, but by outside sources. Others have mentioned this on the panel. The law school provides office space and computers, but they have to go out, or get to go out, I could say more positively, and raise money for the work that they do. And I can talk a little bit more later about why. Why is that? And what are the benefits and challenges of doing that? Just quickly, externships. Again, I know you have those here at JSW, and our students can go off campus to work for agencies or NGOs that do climate work for that kind of experience. So let me now talk about, one of the challenges is my use of technology. Successes, challenges, and ideas to share. I had the chance to review the wonderful brochure that JSW's Climate Change Center has produced. And I want to tailor my comments about successes and challenges to some of the goals that you have listed in your center, in the hope that these will be helpful as you go forward. I should also say that we look forward to learning from you how your center operates, and I'm sure we will learn a lot from Bhutan and your climate center. So, successes, things that have worked well for us. What has worked well for us are a few things. Offering range of experience. To be an effective climate change lawyer today, you need exposure to advocacy in the US courts or your courts. You need experience in the international arena, and you need policy experience. So to give students a range of skill sets, a range of tools, allows them to be very flexible and competent when we send them out into the world. The other thing that has been successful is including our LLMs and our non-law masters in our climate work in our clinics. They then can help mentor the JDs, they can compare notes, they have different backgrounds. So that's been really fruitful to expand the type of student who can do these clinics. One of the goals I know in your center is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. So we have had some success partnering with other schools that do interesting non-law work. At our university, we don't have a graduate program in forestry or public health, so we need to seek partners from other places that can help our students understand the science and the ecology involved with some of these legal issues. Another thing that has worked really well for us is to use our recent graduates and LLMs as fellows in these clinics. By that I mean, when some of our JD students graduate, we keep them in the nest and they can work for these clinics because now they're a lawyer and they can then work in the clinics. We can help train them and they can then help the law students learn. And that has been a great success to keep our recent graduates for 1 to 2 years to work as fellows, and having our LLMs do that as well. The other thing we have found successful, this may seem very obvious, but we ask the employers, the future employers of our students, what skill set do you need? What are you looking for in hiring a future climate change lawyer? And they give us very good and interesting feedback. Finally, I'll mention another success. In our climate change classes, we do simulations, hypothetical situations where the students get comfortable role-playing. So in our international climate change class, that professor offers a simulation. She has them pretend that they are doing a COP negotiation or some kind of negotiation before they then move into the clinic where they're going to actually represent clients. That gives them a skill set and some comfort before they go and do the real work. So we have started to do more and more of those simulations in class. Challenges. Funding, funding, funding. Funding is a big challenge, and this is true of many US law schools and international law schools. We're not alone in this. What we have learned, and it took us a while to get it all together, that we really needed a person, hopefully more than one person at some point, who is very skilled at fundraising. And that may seem obvious, but there's a special skill set, right, in fundraising. Someone who knows how to write a grant, how to do the research to find the particular matches we might ask. When we have the lawyers that are working on these issues write a grant, they are 10 times too long, they use too many words, and they have lost the theme of the story, right? And we have then taken these lawyers away from their important work. So we now have development fundraising people who come and talk to our lawyers. The lawyers tell them all about the wonderful things they're doing, and a skilled grant writer can turn that into a story, a compelling story as to why somebody should fund. So that has been very helpful to us, to get our lawyers sort of out of the way of writing those grants. The other thing that we have as a challenge is all of my environmental students want to do these programs. That's not a problem. But we really need business students. We need the business law students to also be climate change leaders. So trying to encourage them to learn more about environmental law so that they can advise companies, advise nonprofits about how to do better with emissions. So we're working on making sure that our clinics aren't seen as only for environmental students. And so that's something that we're working on. The other thing is unique to our situation, but you may run into it yourselves. Our laws are old. Our environmental laws are from the 1970s. They have not kept up with climate change. So we're wrestling with this old system in a new environment. So that's a challenge, trying to figure out how to change the laws, make them better, make them more usable. Finally, the last challenge is keeping our students optimistic. This picture is myself and some of our faculty. We are standing on the Athabasca Glacier in Canada, the day that former President Trump announced he was pulling the US out of the Paris Agreement. We were smiling because we hadn't heard that news yet. So it's a lot of strength, resilience, and fortitude to do this kind of work with changing administrations, changing politics, changing policies, and it's just hard work in general, as we all know. So keeping our students optimistic, that goes with your happiness level, is very important. And anyone who has ideas and suggestions for keeping students engaged and optimistic, I would be happy to hear them. Thank you very much.